This week on the Honor Roll podcast, we are going to be having a roundtable with 4 graduating seniors talking about their experiences, advice, and future aspirations. Coming up next. Hey Honors Bulls, welcome to the Honor Roll podcast, the flagship podcast of the Judy Genshaft Honors College Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mridula Singh, a senior double majoring in biomedical sciences and psychology here at the University of South Florida, Tampa campus, and I'm also a member of the Honors College. This week, we have a very special episode that will deviate from our usual routine. Instead of our regular guest segment, we'll have a roundtable discussion where we'll discuss this semester's honors graduates and learn from their experiences. This episode will be great for departing students to reflect on their time at USF and for new students to learn from peers closing this important chapter. Today, my co-host is Caroline Merriman, a third year studying English and ecology. How are you doing today, Caroline?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be back on the podcast today and to get to hear from a really cool group of seniors about their experience and their time in undergrad.
Yeah, and as always, we would like to start off the podcast with our one big question. So the big question for this week is, what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
I think I would tell my younger self to not be scared of failure. I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and we don't try things because we don't think they're going to work out. And I think the point is just like, who cares? Like, just do everything. If you fall on your face,
literally.
if you fail, like, at least you did something.
Right.
And you know what the outcome was.
Yeah, and if you don't know, then you grow and you find out what you're trying to do through that experience and through that failure. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to be joined by 3 honors graduating seniors to reflect on their experience and give some advice to all of our listeners. Stay tuned.
Are you interested in graduate study, prestigious scholarships, studying abroad? Serving all 3 USF campuses, the Office of National Scholars, ONS, mentors USF students for prestigious awards and scholarship programs focused on research, international education, graduate study, and intellectual development. If you're interested in applying for awards like Fulbright, Rhodes, or Marshall, don't wait. Meet with an ONS advisor to discover what's possible. You can visit the ONS website or drop by their office on the 2nd floor of the Judy Genshaft Honors College building to learn more.
All right, joining us now in the studio are a group of graduating honors students, Audra, Nader, and Nafisa. Thank you for joining us today. It's really exciting to have you guys here. Would you guys like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Audra Nikolajski. I am currently the president of the Judy Genshaft Honors College Student Council on the Tampa campus. I love my job. I'm very honored to serve in that position. I am about to graduate, as we all know, and I'm very excited. I'm studying English and political science and minoring in education. I think it's Nafisa's turn now.
Thank you, Audra. Hi, everyone. I'm Nafisa. I'm the vice president of the Judy Genshaft Honors Student Council. I'm also president of PAMSA and vice president, which is the Pre-Medical American Medical Student Association, and then vice president of development for the Dean Student Leadership Society. I'm a biomedical sciences and international studies major and minoring in biomedical anthropology. Like Audra, I'm also graduating in May. And after May, I'm headed to med school. So lots of exciting
So
things.
exciting.
Okay, I'm last. My name is Nader Abdalla. Unlike Audra and Nafisa, I am not part of the Judy Genshaft Honors Council. I am a member of the USF BSMD 7-year program. So that combines the bachelor's and the medical part. So you go from USF undergrad to USF medical school. And yeah.
Great. So today we're going to be doing a special episode. We're going to have a roundtable discussion to hear about each of your experiences in college, to hear about our future plans, and talk about a little bit of advice for our younger undergrads and listeners.
So we can start wherever you guys want. We can start from what you're currently doing, how you're feeling in senior year and transitioning out of that. Or we could start kind of how you guys came in freshman year and what that was like for you guys.
I feel like COVID freshman year is a good place to start. How are we feeling about that, guys?
Let's start with the pizza party, quote unquote, as one of my Orgo professors called it.
So what was it like coming in freshman year, especially amid, like, you're one of the first classes that's graduating that your first year was during COVID-19?
I think a lot of because we came in after COVID, so there was no quarantining or anything happening, but a lot of the programs were still reopening. For example, a lot of labs were just online. I know people taking anatomy lab now, they actually do dissections. We just had laptop work. It was disappointing, but it's a lot better now.
Yeah, I actually am local to Tampa, so I was still making the drive, but it was like an empty campus. There were nobody here. We would go to our research lab. We would be in that like space, but never really met anyone outside of like that tiny little group of people. And it was, like he was saying, like all of our stuff was Labster, online, drag and drop stuff. Very, very interesting situation to be in, but I think it was still rewarding. I think it taught us a lot about how to like deal with ourselves and being like content in ourselves before entering college.
Absolutely. It was very strange entering college totally virtually. I was fully self-quarantined at the time. I graduated high school driving through my high school parking lot, which is not a pleasant experience.
No.
So it was really jarring starting college in that sort of environment. It was all online, like I said, and we were fully quarantined in my house. I didn't really get a freshman year, but I started writing for the Oracle, which is USF's newspaper, and I was able to gain some connection to the USF community because of that. So that was really a blessing. But otherwise, it was very isolating being at home all the time, just doing schoolwork and hoping that I would make friends in my sophomore year.
Very similar experience to Audra. Actually, I was prepared to answer this question just being like, my freshman year sucked. I felt no connection to USF. Everything was online. But I think in having everything online, it actually made me really proactive. Like, I think I had the best time management in my freshman year.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you just sat at home and you did your classes. So it was like I was studying in advance. I had study plans, like color coordinated planners. But I think that although I didn't feel connected to USF in the beginning, I definitely tried to stay connected to the Tampa community because I've grown up and lived here my whole life. So just finding ways virtually to make sure that I was staying connected. Like I host International Mother Language Day every year. And that year we had to do it virtually, which was a whole thing of planning and making sure we were socially distanced, but at the same time getting the video made. But I think that forces you to adapt and respond to ambiguity. Sorry, that's a leadership competency for the Honors Student Council.
We're big fans of responding to ambiguity at the Honors College Student Council.
And yeah, just I think that prepared me better for entering my sophomore year. And then I met amazing people like Audra.
I just realized I started a year afterwards, so my response was so off. I was like listening to everybody. I was like, what are they talking about? But yeah.
But you still came in when it was kind of hybrid. Like our sophomore year was still not normal.
No.
I think I would say like
at
our
all.
senior year and end of junior year was normal, so to say.
Yes.
So like what would be the equivalent of like your sophomore and junior year? I think that's when it got like normal for us. Like, I don't know.
And the world was kind of still recovering.
Oh, yeah.
Even
Yes.
outside
Oh, yeah.
of campus, it wasn't normal.
Yeah, no, 100%. There was still like stigmas. There were still a lot of things that they were facing. But I would say, kind of going off of what Nafisa said, though, I did get involved in some of my bigger orgs that I'm still a part of, like Sparks Magazine and Phi Delta Epsilon, which is a medical fraternity, during my freshman year because I was so on top of things and like frantic to get involved, but like also to meet people. And I will say that I think a lot of like the online options that students see right now, you wouldn't have seen, because my sister went through undergrad right before COVID started, you would not have seen those had COVID not happened. So I do think that we became a more like, we became a better connected community. I feel like with people getting sick or like being like accounting for like people that cannot be in the physical classroom sometimes and having that like kind of thing after COVID. So I am grateful for that.
Yeah.
You know, online meeting options and stuff were not very common prior to that. So
I think like having something taken away kind of makes you appreciate it more.
yes.
And it's just cool that you guys were still able to like get involved and you're still looking for opportunities despite like you were going through a pandemic. Like a lot of us were self-isolating. A lot of us hadn't even talked to like our own friends. A lot of us didn't get a senior year or a junior year. So it's cool that you guys were still reaching out and like trying to make connections and making the best of like just kind of the situation you were dealt with, and that those organizations were still trying to like provide accessible ways to like at least be a part of something like throughout that year, that first year.
Okay, so kind of going off of that conversation, though, I have a question. So how did you guys kind of adapt or change your major or plans based off of like kind of what we went through in the freshman year, sophomore year of our undergrads?
So I came into USF thinking that I wanted to be a journalist. And it was lucky that the Oracle, USF's newspaper, was able to accommodate me virtually. So the entire staff was online at the time that we came into freshman year. And I started working with them right away. And I realized that even though the Oracle was an amazing place and the news cycle was a really fun thing to work in, that I did not fit in the news cycle. So I was actually still able to adjust my career path accordingly freshman year, fully virtually, which is a blessing. And so now I'm more focused on education policy and using writing in the classroom instead of reporting on the news cycle, which was very difficult and stressful a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I actually came into USF and I was like, I know I want to do a double major. I want to do biomedical sciences and international studies. I was actually also originally in the 7-year BSMD program.
As we all were.
Yes.
Not all of us.
Not I.
And then through my international studies classes, I was like, I realized that I'm more interested in global health and what my vision of medicine was. Because initially I was like, oh, I want to go mostly do research in neurology. But having that interdisciplinary experience, I guess, and having that experience in like a completely different major, because it's not related to medicine at all, I found that in my international studies class, like the first one on globalization was the one that made me realize, oh, I want to be a doctor, and I don't want to do 7-year BSMD. Sorry, Nader.
A lot of people... And
No hate to BSMD.
No hate, yeah.
a lot of people find better opportunities than 7-year BSMD because it's a very nice path, but it's a very restrictive path, and it limits what you can do.
Yeah, I would say I had a pretty similar experience. That was where like the question kind of stemmed from. Is like I feel like my whole first year I thought I needed to be this cookie cutter pre-med, and then I found all of these like I was doing research 40 hours a week and all this stuff, but that wasn't like enough. Like it didn't feel like enough. But then I got all these like photography positions, and I realized like okay, like there are ways to tie together like your interests and kind of like make all these things happen and like be in a good space and not like restrict yourself to medicine. And that's when I also was not graduating in 3 years anymore, and I declared a second major. So I was in a very similar place.
Yeah.
So what were some of the projects that got you involved on campus coming out of like your freshman sophomore year?
So I was on the founding e-board for Hab Lab, which stands for Habitat Lab, and it was done under Professor Tina Parashi, and our focus was to kind of combine art, engineering, and habitat constructions. And also under her class, Art and the Environment, we worked on creating these oyster breaks to kind of help increase the population of oysters within our waterways, to keep them cleaner, to keep them healthier. And it impacted me because I always had an interest in engineering, and I got to see how you can do engineering outside of the classical. My dad's a civil engineer. He draws roads. It's very, very standardized. It's like I've never seen somebody use engineering to help build habitats and stuff like that. And of course it exists. It just never popped into my mind. And so it was a really good opportunity because I was able to use my CAD skills. I had a session where I taught a couple of students how to use CAD, and I tried to show them. We were making birdhouses, and I think the end goal is to laser print them. So that was very interesting.
Yeah.
That's such a unique experience.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because you got to tie together like
Don't even doubt yourself. Yeah,
No,
that's a unique
because
experience.
I like met you in the context of being with Marina on that project.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yes.
I do think that like experience was so giving because she talks about it all the time, but like you guys had very interdisciplinary like approaches and showed a lot of people where they want to go with their life in terms of like tying
Yes.
together medicine and engineering in
Yes.
that aspect.
And we got to use clay printers, which are so cool.
Yeah. That's another thing.
So you all kind of like changed your paths a little bit, like once you got to USF, once you started kind of engaging with like the community and like different opportunities like photography and art and writing. Why did you choose USF in the first place? What drew you to the university?
Apart from proximity, I would say USF's like opportunity is really, really big. Like the area of Tampa is very populated in hospitals, very populated in like just, the market here, like for jobs, for like just research, and everything kind of drove me to that. But I am a commuter, so proximity is a big thing.
Proximity was a big thing for me as well, but the number of hospitals around USF was a major push because I think we have at least like Tampa General, the Veterans, there's a children's hospital, there's Moffitt, and I didn't know about research at the time as a high schooler. I didn't really comprehend that was a thing you could do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Scientists were like something that's just extra human. What wasn't something I could do, but when I joined, I realized how much research opportunities there were, and that was a fantastic thing about USF, which is definitely a hidden plus I found.
I chose USF for a very similar reason, also a combination. The proximity was very helpful to me because I was caretaking for my dad at the time. So I was driving back and forth from school. I live in a very close area to Mridula, so it's really neat. So I was driving back and forth. So USF was the best option. But I was also super excited about the honors program. I was thrilled to be accepted, and I knew that it would be the right choice for me. So those two things made USF the best choice.
I didn't. Well, actually, maybe there's some other high schoolers in Tampa who are going through this experience. I didn't really want to come to USF. My mom used to work at USF. My parents were kind of, because they're like in medicine, so they were kind of always in the USF area. USF never really felt like, oh, this is the university I want to go to. It's kind of like, yeah, that's where mom and dad used to work. So USF got me because I'm actually a National Merit Scholar, and that scholarship package is real nice.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
And
it
it's
is.
worth it. And it makes things really
I do think
it is.
funding is worth like pointing out.
Yeah. However, I will say for any other jaded high school seniors who were like, USF is close and I want to go be independent and I want to go to far off places. Well, one, I mean, COVID happened. So there was that thought of, okay, maybe it's time to stay close to family. But in my experience at USF, I've been pleasantly surprised. I think a lot of people have this idea of USF that, oh, you know, it's not one of the bigger Florida schools. It's kind of there. And it's like, if you're in pre-med, then that's where you go. But USF is growing so much and innovating so much and has a lot of unique opportunities. And because it's constantly growing, that's why you can find new opportunities here. Like, I didn't imagine feeling actually really connected to USF, like joining student council, being passionate about the honors college. I thought I was just going to bullet through. That was my plan initially, like get out of USF as fast as possible, graduate in 3 years if you can. And then I ended up spending the whole 4 years taking on another minor and then just getting involved with various organizations and actually being passionate about like where USF is going to go. So to those jaded high schoolers, like don't knock on USF. I think it's less about the institution you go to and more of what you make of your opportunity.
That is a really good point to make. I feel like a lot of people that are like us and we're like very close by to USF, we undermine the actual campus, and everyone does that. Anyone close to Gainesville undermines UF. Like it's not like an uncommon experience, but I feel like, as you said, like there's just, and with the honors college especially, there's just so much opportunity to be like, this is something I want to do, and go backwards and be like, let me find a mentor who will let me do what I want to do and, you know, support me through that process and give me guidance. And I feel like that's not something you get everywhere. Like you have to hop on things that pre-exist in other universities, but like you can be innovative, found your own org, do whatever you want to in that aspect. And that's really unique.
There's a lot more benefit when you have the ability to be innovative.
Yes.
Sometimes maintaining tradition prevents like new ingenuity and new success. So I encourage people to do new things, to start new things, to embrace new opportunities, because that's how you really learn and get better at the things you want to get better at.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Kind of touching on that, the ingenuity and starting things and getting invested into things at the university. Once you're kind of transferring out of that at freshman year and you're kind of like rooted into the community of the university now, what projects did you find yourself getting involved in? Did you start any organizations? Just kind of how did you connect more with the university and kind of engage with the community?
Shall I talk about acing accessibilities?
Oh, that's interesting. Wow, yeah, we should talk about that.
Okay.
I haven't thought about that in years.
So there was this project called Acing Accessibilities. I think the goal of it was to educate faculty and students about how they can be allies for students with disabilities. This was a project started by a student who has already graduated from USF. His name is Kevin Nguyen. And that is how Audra and I first met, actually, because we both just randomly joined this project.
Yeah.
And then, Audra, if you want to put in your input for this story.
Yeah, they were looking for someone who was especially dedicated and passionate about curriculum. And that really spoke to me because I really care about the place that students have in the classroom and the ways that students are able to interact with learning. So I kind of jumped on the opportunity to join. It was previously a grand challenge group, which is an opportunity really neat. So which is an opportunity that the Honors College has for students to solve problems in an innovative way, which we talked about, right? So I joined this group post Grand Challenge, and so did Nafisa, and we were able to sort of develop a curriculum that would teach faculty and staff and students how to best arrange their classrooms and arrange their practices to accommodate all types of students. It was very interesting.
And then that's when she told me about the Honor Student Council, and that's when I applied to be on it. Then the next year we were both the community and leadership co-coordinators, and now we're president and VP.
That's pretty cool.
A little journey for us.
And now we're actually trying to do something similar with me and some of the other student council members. Not a grand challenge, but the conference at which we presented our ACing Accessibilities course, we're now trying to create a peer mental health lead course.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
So once I got settled into USF, I didn't do too much student org related matters, which I kind of regret at this point. Instead, I put all of my focus into research, which I don't regret. And I'm really proud of what I managed to do because I had a very good mentor at USF, Dr. Marcus Cook, and he pushed me to apply for a lot of programs both within and outside of USF, such as there's a program called Talks MSDT, which is toxicology, mentorship, student. Okay, I don't know the rest of the acronym.
I was going to say
it's a toxicology mentorship
Yeah.
program, and that was a fantastic program. It was a year long, and they connected you with a lot of toxicologists. You got to visit a work site, so I got to visit Boston Dynamics and Medtronics and to see their medical equipment development side. And if you don't know, toxicology is the study of toxins. Who would have guessed?
Not me.
I wouldn't have guessed.
He also pushed me to apply for an NIH program to fund me doing research in the summer at his lab. And there was another program I applied to from another society called EMGS, which is the Environmental Mutagenesis and Genomics Society. I know that one. And that one, they paid me to do research and then fly over to Canada to present about it. And it was very cool, very helped me develop my understanding of research and science in my career. But at the end of the day, I didn't get involved in a lot of the student life things, which I think I could have done both of them. I just wasn't of mind to do it.
Hi, I'm Lacey Pinnell. I am a fifth-year senior, and I'm an industrial engineering student. So my favorite honors experience has really been my Puerto Rico trip. It was a service trip through the Honors College. So we essentially went out to El Yunque, and we cleaned up some trails and made it easier for tourists to actually explore on the rocks. And we also went to a coffee bean farm that was family-owned, and we were able to kind of clear up the vines and ensure that those coffee beans could survive, and the family was very lovely. And then finally, right before we left, we cleaned up a beach, and we cleaned up a lot of trash and just made sure that the locals were able to experience the beach without all of the effects of tourism that were happening. So that was a really good experience in my opinion. Go Bulls!
So could you guys tell me more about what the student council does here? Because I haven't really heard of them.
Gladly, and I'm sad that you haven't heard of us already. So the Judy Genshaft Honors College Student Council is a group of students. It's very low commitment. Anyone can join at any time. And then we have a group of 10 executive board members who oversee all of the operations. We have four primary goals. The first is to host events for the students. So we host a lot of really awesome stuff like fall picnic. We do Honors Got Talent every year. And then the events committee co-chairs and the rest of the events committee get some say in what their other programming is, which is really cool. They come up with really awesome stuff. They did a mafia night this year that was particularly exceptional. We also have a volunteer committee. I actually joined the student council through the volunteer committee. It was really neat during my freshman year to be able to do service virtually, and then I was picked as the volunteer committee co-chair my sophomore year. So I got to transition us back to full in-person work, and we serve community partners. We go out to places like Habitat for Humanity, Aging Services. We do the ASPCA, Humane Society.
Walks. walks, like
Walks.
a heart
Oh, like a heart walk. Yeah.
5Ks.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
And a lot of fundraising for organizations like Bulls for Kids, who serve the Shriners Hospital, and just a lot of fundraising in general. Dance Marathon is a big event that we do. We always take the entire college over to Dance Marathon and dance the night away and the day away. It's a 12-hour event. And then we also have a marketing and public relations committee that gets to oversee our marketing and public relations and come up with creative ways to inform the students about our actions. And then we have community and leadership co-coordinators who host professional development opportunities for the students, which is pretty cool. So they do things like bring in community partners to talk to students about what students can get involved in or how they can grow their resumes, their interview skills, etc. Very exciting. Nafisa and I had that job together last year, which is great. So the council on the whole is just meant to serve as a community place for students to get involved, a touchstone for people to have a connection to the college, and also serve as a way for students to get involved with faculty and staff connection as well, because faculty and staff are heavily involved with our events and programming.
Wow.
It's a joy. I love the student council. Everybody should join the student council.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who works on marketing, we love the student council.
we
They're
do.
very involved and very just like the people that like set up a lot of the events that are forefront. I think we just don't think about it too much because I didn't know that until I was junior. I didn't know that the JGHC Instagram was, Honors College, and then JGHC SC was Honors College Student Council. I just missed the SC. So, like, a lot of people make that mistake. We have been trying to advertise that a little bit better. But kind of for like what we were talking about with opportunity, I was going to say that like I had a kind of a combination of the two. Like there were a lot of opportunities with, extracurriculars and social life here. But then I also did a lot of research, which got me a lot of like my medicine side of like I got, a job at Moffitt. I had like volunteer experiences and stuff. So I had that exposure through my research. But then on the other side, like extracurriculars on campus, there were just so many opportunities. I feel like just getting involved and like staying involved. I never got to do HOSA in high school because our chapter was very small. So I know a lot of like the freshmen coming in, a lot of the high schoolers right now, they're in HOSA and FBLA and stuff. They have that in college, guys. Like, and it was a lot less competitive, but it was really cool because you still get to go in front of people. And I did health career photography. I got to tie together medicine and marketing for the first time. And something like that really puts you in a place where like you feel like you're seen. And I think that's like really nice about a lot of USF stuff. Like we have so many magazines. You touched on Thread. Yep. I also worked for the Oracle. We have another newsletter for the other campus that I cannot think of the name of right now. But
the Crow's Nest.
The Crow's Nest. And then we have Sparks Magazine, The Capsule. And these are all like dedicated to different things, but you get to put your name out there. Like I wrote poetry this semester. I do not write poetry, guys. Like
you do now. You do now.
Yeah, I do now. And you get to put your experience out there. And I feel like USF is really unique in that. Like, you get to express yourself, but you also get to share that expression with other people.
Touching on that, like you cannot stress the importance enough of like taking advantage of all the different communities and the importance of simply just talking to people. That's something I definitely
marketing yourself. Yeah.
Something that I didn't do enough in my younger years. Like I just didn't know what other people were doing, and because I couldn't see like what past people were going on, I didn't realize like what was possible for myself. And so now that I've been taking more time to like talk to more people who are ahead of me, like you guys, all these different seniors and stuff, it's helped me change my own path. But how did you guys like pick and choose where to get involved? Like there being so many different things here, how do you know like what experience is going to pay off and what's most important to you? And how did that maybe shape where you went in your journey?
Okay, I'm like hyped to talk about this. Because I went to a high school in Tampa, and it was like everyone got involved with everything. But it was more of a you did it to make yourself stand out, and you did it to basically resume blocking. Don't do that.
No.
I think it's very important to get involved with things you're passionate about. And I think your freshman year, you kind of just do a little bit of everything just to kind of feel your way out. But as I got through college, like, I had my research that was like, wet lab research. It's very much like, okay, I need this for medical school. But I also did a lot of independent research. And a lot of that was influenced by just finding like different experiences. So for example, I did one of the Honors College's study abroad programs to the Dominican Republic. I know you guys have had a podcast on that. But because of that experience, I talked to Dr. Davidson, who led the fall 2022 trip, and I talked to Dr. Carroll, who is the physician we work with in the Dominican Republic, and we came up with a project idea about like nutrition and preventable disease. How do we sustainably, in a community health way, talk about nutrition, get people educated about nutrition, so that they can prevent diseases like type 2 diabetes, like hypertension. And we were like, let's create a cookbook that looks at ethnic cuisine, but tries to make sure that they're more nutritious. Because, a lot of healthy diets they focus on like, okay, eat your broccoli and steamed vegetables. And it's like, look, I'm Bengali. We don't do that.
Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that.
So that was something that just came out of an experience. And then I heard about the Humanities Institute, which get involved with that early if you are planning to come to USF.
Yes, definitely.
That is a great experience to dive into research. And for those who are like on a medicine or pre-medicine or like a science track, do research in the humanities, because it is not going to take away from your application. Rather than it gives you more experiences and it gives you more perspectives, which will later help you in your career. Like a lot of the humanities focused research that I've done is actually what has made me more passionate about medicine. So yeah, my shtick is essentially do things that you are passionate about, figure out what you are passionate about, and then get heavily involved in that. Yep. Don't check boxes on a resume.
I will say I also came from a similar high school. We were both like IB kids, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And for that reason, I had a hard time saying no to people. I do photography, and a lot of people were like, we have this historian position open. Like, do you want to do it? And I would be like, yeah, sure. I hopped on like 8, I think e-boards at one time, which was unnecessary. And it was one of those things where like, I think learning how to say no to certain things is also important, because I was passionate about photography, and it wasn't that it was something that was taking away from these experiences, but I think that I would have been happier had I just told, sometimes they're your friends and you just don't want to let them down, but learning how to do that. And another thing, I guess, picking wise, I will say, like, at first I wanted to do a lot more medicine things, because in high school, I was that tennis player, orchestra kid that was like, I'm going to film school. I was not going to med school. So, like, for me, my, exposure to the field was so little. Like, I didn't know how to, I only came into research in a wet lab because I didn't know where to start. So I think it's okay to not know where to start. That's something I always emphasize is, just sometimes you do have to just get involved in whatever comes your way. I started in cardiovascular surgery. I'm definitely not going into cardiovascular surgery. I'm doing neuroscience 4 years later. And it's like that opportunity presented itself as I went, through an experience that seemed very useless in the moment, and I feel like a lot of people stray away from certain things just because they feel like, oh, what if this is not what I want to do 5 years down the line? Well, that doesn't matter, because, you can figure it out 5 years down the line, how to tie everything together. And I don't know, I feel like Nafisa made a really good point about humanities. I got involved with the Undergraduate Research Society, where I became a research coordinator. And that was the first time I was exposed to research kind of outside of wet lab. And there's so much research outside of the wet lab situation at USF. And you can definitely find different ways to kind of tie together your interests within research at USF. And I feel like the Humanities Conference was so personable, and it taught you so much about career goals, because like you were saying, it's so hard to walk up to someone sometimes and be like, what are you doing? But when you're in a room of 12 people, you end up talking about what are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And yeah, just learning from other people. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm in this, but I dropped it. And it's like, why'd you drop it? Or learning from what their experience was, or their rationale, and being like, okay, this is something I want to keep on my plate, or this is something that I don't need at this moment.
I was going to say, you're speaking to a lesson that I try to impart on as many people as possible. I think this is really important to my journey and also to the journey of other people, which is to commit yourself to the truest thing you know at the time. So that means if you think you want to be a journalist, act like you're going to be a journalist, right? So you're pursuing opportunities at the school that relate to that in some way. And then even if you don't want to be a journalist anymore, like I didn't, you still have experiences that are going to lead you other places. So you'll find things when you're seeking opportunities that are going to lead you to the place that you want to be, and then you can choose things that make you even happier and pertain even more to your future career. But you can't work toward I don't know.
Yes.
So pick something and then do as many things that make you happy in that arena as you can, and then you'll eventually find the place where you are trying to get to.
I think that's also why it's really helpful to befriend, when you're a freshman, to befriend people who are like in their senior year, because they've had multiple tangents. They might have changed their major 3 or 4 times, might have tried so many different career paths, and they still have networking connections and like knowledge of programs in those paths they try to take. Even if they didn't finish them, even if they didn't stay in that path, they still can help you join that. And if that's what you want to do and they try to do it for 6 months, then it's still very helpful to talk to them.
Yes.
So now that you guys are kind of on the other side of the table from the younger undergrads and you're getting ready to transition, out of the undergraduate life, what has senior year been like so far? What do we younger folk have to look forward to or to watch out for in the senior year?
Senior year is really beautiful because it feels like a culmination of everything that you've done. There is a lot of closure involved. You may apply to grad school, you may be looking for a job, and certainly the closure of graduation and commencement is really nice. It's really nice to get to sort of leave a legacy behind in some ways, even if that's just in your academic career or in your orgs like me. It's been really amazing to sort of finish my tenure as the Honors College Student Council president and to be able to pass that baton. I've loved getting to train up the next thread editors. Caroline is going to be taking over my position. So it's really nice to do all the things that I wanted to do and transition that away. But there is a lot of stress involved in that process too.
Yes.
A lot of uncertainty, I think, for a lot of us, but at least it's uncertainty that comes with a little bit of closure.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Audra said. As someone who is also involved with different organizations, like particularly in PAMSA, like we have an annual medical school forum, and like for 3 years I've worked in some capacity on that forum. And to be able to see how the new e-board is going to take that and how they're going to transform PAMSA, like I'm working with the next president to kind of seamlessly create new programs that they can start taking over next year, like an alumni network. It's very rewarding to see how you have influenced others and helped them find themselves in their own journey. At the same time, it's also a lot of stress. I think senior year is this weird epiphany moment as well. You think that you've kind of figured out what college is like, but then you have this moment in senior year and it's like, I have been kind of approaching things in a way that I wouldn't approach them anymore.
Yeah.
And I think an important lesson I learned in my senior year is how to say no and prioritize yourself.
I wish I learned that one.
Learn it.
Still working on that one, but
Me too. It's okay.
yeah. So my senior year, unlike a lot of people, I actually, like I was saying, was kind of finding where I wanted to go. And I figured out what I wanted to do end of junior year, beginning of senior year. And that's when I was like, okay, actually, I don't want to do Alzheimer's. I want to do like this specific niche area of neuroscience. And so my year has actually been struggling to figure out like where I want to go with what I figured out I want to do. And like, I feel like that's okay. Like, I feel like a lot of people like, and realizing that that's okay is like really hard because a lot of people know what they're doing. They're like going into what they want to go into. And I know I want to do med school eventually, but I know that like stepping back and taking that step back is not, a bad thing now. Cause I feel like when I was a freshman, I was dead set on 4 years. I go straight into med school. And I feel like now I'm like realizing that like, it's not, as a lot of people, as a lot of the freshmen, sophomores say, it's never that deep. Like, like it's never that deep.
As the kids say.
Yeah, as the kids say. No, just kidding. But, it's genuinely never that deep in that aspect because, you have your advisors, you have mentors that you meet once you're more mature because you don't realize, like the people that I met that guide me the best are the people that I met in a space when I was extroverted. I was not this good at talking to people when I came in. And I feel like that was like, I guess my advice would be to freshmen to kind of be okay to be lost a little and find yourself later than other people do because people are constantly changing their majors, constantly changing their paths. And that's the point of undergrad. Like you don't need to come in knowing like I definitely want to go into this and do this and you get there. Like it can be different from person to person.
I love that. It's okay to get lost.
It is
a little
okay
bit.
to be lost.
Be comfortable with the ambiguity.
Yeah, because sometimes you're you're lost and you find like the best thing ever, because that's when you find like when you feel like you're down the most and someone like picks you up from that situation, that's when you find like this is what I want to do. But
I mean, with the combined BSMD program, the senior year, you're already done. You've already made your decisions. You can't go back.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been a lot of free time and not a lot of thinking.
Nice.
Envious of that.
Well earned.
I guess I'll have that type of stress in another 4 years during my next senior year.
your next senior year.
That's so far away, though. Don't worry about that now. Freedom now.
It's going to be my first senior year. Because I didn't have a high school senior year. I didn't have a college senior year.
Oh, so sad.
That's going to be a little jarring.
Yeah.
Did you graduate as a junior in high school too?
Yeah. We were exiting the quarantine. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to have to raise my hand to go to the bathroom.
Were you at
fair
were you
enough.
at
So valid.
2021? Senior year is 2021.
He graduated in 2020 then, right?
I think so.
Brother.
I don't know.
Anyways, next question is going to be, this is kind of like my last question for the segment, is what is one piece of advice you would give to your past self, looking back from where you are now?
Ooh.
Talk to more people.
That's
Ask
a good
more
one.
questions.
I would say learn how to sell yourself and not undersell yourself. I feel like I'm that person who kind of like backtracks and is like, but maybe I'm not worth your time. And I think I've heard a lot of people do that, and that's something I've like tried to mentor out of people. But I do feel like a lot of freshmen and sophomore come in being like, I know I'm good at this, but like maybe I'm not. So like, just be confident in yourself and like sell yourself.
No one else knows either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody else knows what they're doing either. Like we all are kind of finding ourselves. So,
I would tell younger me it's all going to be okay. And I would remind her of Douglas Adams' famous quote. He wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And he said, I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I ended up where I intended to be. So I would
That's
remind young me that you are going to be okay and you're going to end up where you want to be. The journey to get there will be a little bit more fun than you expect.
Young me. I think I hesitate to give out this advice just because I think most people are self-interested. Not necessarily selfish, but self-interested. But I would tell younger me, prioritize yourself, and demanding reciprocity is not selfish.
Yes. Can we snap for
was
that?
beautiful.
Can we snap for that one? 'Cause
Lots of snaps for that. Nafisa.
even if it's a mentor.
yes.
Yes, that's great advice.
Yeah. Even if it's a mentor.
That was something I definitely had to learn throughout my senior year of understanding that you do not always have to work yourself to the bone. You do not always have to be the one who gives, and that every person, because I think that's a common honors student type thing, that we are going to work, we're going to give, we are going to be the change makers, and you get exhausted. And I think everyone is deserving of reciprocity. And I'd also tell her, like, make the choices that you least regret and just keep moving forward, because things will work out in the end in the way that they're supposed to. Don't get hung up on the things that you might have done wrong. I mean, reflect, but don't get so hung up on the things you might have done wrong, or like, oh, what if I did this? Because you can't change that decision now. So the best that you can do is learn from it, and then just know in yourself that everything will be okay going in.
Can I add another piece of advice just based off of that? Look to other people to grow from their experiences, not to compare yourself or put yourself down. That is another thing.
Great
I think
advice.
that's really hard when you see such high achieving people. And then I went to conferences and everyone was just like, well, this is all I do. Like this one thing. And we are so surrounded by people that are like hyperactive, doing a million organizations, a million research projects. And like we start thinking like we're not good enough. But that's just USF, guys. Like I'm telling you, like that's just USF and that's just honors. Like it's just people that are just as burnt out or like just feeling the same thing that you are, but they're not displaying it because you don't see that externally. But like they're just as frantic or like just as lost. So yeah, that would be one thing. And comparing yourself is not worth it. Definitely not worth it.
No, never.
And now I have another one to add.
Yes.
So originally
We'll
I
do a
said
second
talk
round
to
around the
people.
table.
Originally I said talk to people, but don't underestimate how willing people are to help. Like you just have a request,
Excellent
you
advice.
want something, you want to start a project, you want money. Like people are willing to provide help, provide programs that are already established, or they might just establish a program to help you. And you might think that it's going to take a lot of time and effort for them, but you never know what they're willing to accept. If you don't ask, the answer's no, and you're never going to see some of these people again. So just ask, even if you're embarrassed.
Send that email.
Fantastic advice.
Send that email.
Follow up on the emails.
Yes.
Send that email and then follow up on that email. Sorry, I have a lot to say. I've been lost a lot. I have been lost in these things a lot. There was a lot of things I could have done differently, but yeah.
We've learned a lot of lessons. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to just quickly, if we have time. No,
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
quickly touch on Nader's advice, because I think as honors students, we often don't ask for help. We think that
Yes.
asking for help is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of incompetence. That means you can't handle all of this on your plate. You need someone to babysit you. And that's not the case, because Audra remembers this. I had a car crash in like September.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, God, I'm
And
so sorry.
The first thing
It was
I
awful.
did, yes, I called our graduate assistant and I was like, we need to work on how I'm going to fulfill my student council responsibilities because I don't have a car anymore. And she was like, you got into an accident. Let's focus on that.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, I'm supposed to be juggling all of this stuff. I'm supposed to, do it with a smile on my face. And it's like, no, you don't have to. The people who are there for you are there to support you. It's okay to ask for help. It is actually quite mature to realize where your shortcomings are. Not shortcomings, but, where you might not be at 100% right now, and to realize that and reach out so that you can be at 100%. So, yes, ask for help because there are people who are willing to hold their hand out to you. So,
Like our honors advisors.
Absolutely. We're very
Talk to them.
blessed.
Talk
Thank you
to
guys.
them.
Well, thank you guys so much for all of that advice. As a junior sitting here taking some diligent notes, I think it's really important to recognize that it's really easy to get duped into grind culture. It's really easy to, with all that's going on everywhere at one time, to lose sight of that proverbial pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But I think your journeys kind of speak to it's all well. It all works out. All's well that ends well. And on a lighter note, we're gonna do some rapid fire questions, and you guys can just kind of answer as you want, jump in. Don't feel any kind of oh, we're going to step on each other's toes. Okay, first question is, what's the best place you've lived?
London.
Tampa, I've never left
Tampa.
this place.
Brandon.
Brandon? All right, legit. What's your favorite off-campus restaurant?
Dave's Hot Chicken.
That is good.
Tea Story.
Oh, that is also good.
I think I like Lanzau's noodle place.
Ooh.
Koizi.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I
good.
need that.
Tempa
all you can
Loco,
eat.
Tempa Loco.
What was your go-to struggle meal?
Taco Bell every day, all the time.
Crunch wrap.
Let's
Oh,
go.
chicken quesadilla.
Sushi.
Okay, what's your favorite study spot?
MSC.
MSC is fantastic, especially the little private rooms if they're empty.
We're just third floor late at night.
Yeah, that's two.
The learning lofts in the honors building or the 5th floor of the library.
Honors Council Leadership Conference Room.
What's your favorite USF event you ever attended?
Ooh.
That's a big question. A lot.
The Judy Genshaft Honors College Fall Picnic.
Honors Got Talent.
Campus activities boards, Wolves Night Out events.
Those are really
Any of them. All of them. I used to work them.
The thread release events.
Heck yeah.
Sparks release events.
Everyone plugs their
Plugs their orgs.
I see
Medical
your
school
publication
forum.
and I raise you mine.
Okay, and last one, best dining hall on campus.
I do not touch the dining halls.
My mom's kitchen.
Yeah.
Are we all people who
We're
live at
commuters.
home?
I've been to JP though. I will say JP is decent.
I've eaten at the hub one time.
Argos the flip kitchen.
Chick-fil-A.
Flip kitchen. Okay, I will
the
say
flip
flip
kitchen is
kitchen.
nice.
Final answer.
I've heard Champion's Choice is good.
I've heard that's good,
Yeah, I
but
don't get
that
there.
costs money.
Specific.
I have a friend who exclusively eats at Champion's Choice. So
Yes.
I'll say for his
Nick.
on his part. Yes. Only eats at Champion's Choice.
He only goes to Champions.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. That is all the time we have, but it's been wonderful to hear about your journeys, and I'm sure that everyone who's listening really appreciates all of your insight and wisdom.
Yes, thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
Yes. And we are back in the studio. Thank you all for joining us. Mridula, what did you think of the podcast today?
I thought it was really fun being on the opposite side, and it made me realize how short this amount of time is to give everything, and especially when you're talking about 4 years of your life.
Yeah.
But I do think that I hope freshmen were able to get the message that it's really never that deep, and it is all these things that like we have, learned, and we've only learned through our experiences. We wouldn't have learned this just like, going through succeeding in everything that we've ever
They were
done.
the hard-learned lessons.
Yes.
Hard-learned lessons.
And
it was
they're
cool.
they're rewarding.
Yeah, and it was cool to hear about like your experiences in undergrad and all of your advice as someone who's still a junior. Like it helped me even just sitting in on the conversation to kind of think more about, what I'm doing in the
glad.
future. Yeah, it was wonderful. So thank you. To make your honors experience your own, don't forget to check the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for all upcoming events, updates, and news.
That will do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by honor student Abby Malloy and Professor Adam Davidson. Thank you all so much for listening, and please do not forget to rate and review our podcast. We really appreciate your feedback. Tune in next time where we'll be sharing more honor stories. Until next time, it's not that deep.